What if the hero saving the world had no idea he was doing it? What if every time he woke up he didn't know where he was, what he'd done, or even who he was? Most people have never heard of Moon Knight, and the ones who have usually write him off as a discount Batman, a guy in a white suit who beats people up at night. But here's the truth. Moon Knight is arguably the most psychologically complex character Marvel has ever created. A man with multiple personalities, a contract with an Egyptian god, and a past so dark that his own mind had to split just to survive it. And by the end of this video, whether you've never heard of him or you think you already know everything, I promise you'll see him completely differently. Before we talk about Moon Knight, we need to talk about Marc Spector. Because unlike most heroes, understanding Moon Knight starts with understanding the man underneath. And that man had a very difficult beginning. Marc Spector grew up in Chicago. His father, Elias Spector, was a rabbi, a deeply religious man who fled Nazi Germany as a child, a Holocaust survivor who rebuilt his life in America and dedicated himself to faith and community. Marc grew up in that world: faith, discipline, community. But Marc was different from his father in one fundamental way. Where his father found peace in belief, Marc found something else entirely: a hunger for conflict, for adrenaline, for pushing himself to the absolute edge. As a teenager, Marc was already getting into fights, not because he was angry, but because something in him needed it, needed to feel the limits of what his body could take. He joined the Marines, then the CIA, and eventually, the place that would define him for years, the world of mercenaries. Marc Spector became a gun for hire, brilliant, fearless, and completely disconnected from any moral anchor. But here's the first thing most people miss about Marc. He wasn't evil, he wasn't cruel. He just had no framework anymore for what was right and what wasn't. He'd left his father's world behind and hadn't found anything to replace it. He was a man without a compass, and that is the most dangerous kind of person to become. But wait, it gets much darker than that. Everything changes in Egypt. Marc is working for a mercenary named Raoul Bushman, one of the most brutal men in the business. They're hired to raid an archaeological dig site in Sudan near Egypt. And that's where Marc sees something that finally breaks through his numbness. Bushman starts killing civilians, not soldiers, civilians, people who have nothing to do with the mission. And he does it without hesitation. For the first time in years, Marc feels something. Conscience, disgust. A line that even he, a man who had crossed so many lines, wasn't willing to cross. He tries to stop Bushman. Bushman nearly beats him to death and leaves him in the desert to die. And this is where the story of Moon Knight truly begins, because Marc Spector crawls, barely alive, to the entrance of a temple, an ancient Egyptian temple dedicated to Khonshu, the god of the moon, the god of travelers, the protector of those who travel at night. And there, at the feet of a statue of Khonshu, Marc Spector dies. His heart stops. He's gone. And then Khonshu offers him a deal. Come back, be my fist, be my avatar on Earth, the one who protects travelers in the night, punish those who harm others under the moon. And Marc says yes. He comes back. He wraps himself in the white linens from the tomb, like the Egyptian god himself, and walks out into the night. Moon Knight is born. But here's what nobody talks about. What did Marc actually agree to? This is where it gets complicated and fascinating. Khonshu is not a simple deity. In Egyptian mythology, Khonshu is the god of the moon, but also of time, of healing, and of protection. He's depicted as a mummy with a crescent moon on his head. But in Marvel Comics, Khonshu is something else entirely. He's manipulative, obsessive, ancient, and he chose Marc Spector very deliberately. See, Khonshu doesn't just give Mark powers and disappear, he stays. He's a constant presence in Mark's mind, whispering, pushing, demanding. In the Disney Plus series, which brought Moon Knight to millions of people who'd never read a comic, Khonshu is portrayed as this towering, terrifying figure with a bird skull for a head, and his relationship with Mark is complicated. He saved Mark's life. That's real. But why? Because Mark was broken enough to be useful. And here's the fan theory that has been circulating for years, one that actually has strong support in the comics. Did Khonshu cause Mark's dissociative identity disorder, or did he make it worse? Some fans and comic writers have suggested that Khonshu's constant presence in Mark's mind, his pushing, his demands, his manipulation, actively contributed to the fracturing of Mark's psyche. That the god didn't just find a broken man, he helped break him further. Because a man with multiple personalities is easier to control. If Mark's sense of self is unstable, Khonshu can always find a version of him that will do what needs to be done. It's one of the darkest ideas in all of Marvel, and it's never been fully confirmed, which makes it even more disturbing. Now let's talk about the part of Moon Knight that makes him truly unique. Marc Spector has dissociative identity disorder, multiple personalities that emerged as a coping mechanism for trauma, and the most prominent ones are three. Marc Spector, the original, the soldier, the mercenary, the man who died in Egypt and came back. He's the fighter, the one who carries the most rage and the most guilt. He knows the most about who he is, and hates most of what he knows. Stephen Grant. In the comics, Stephen is a wealthy entrepreneur that Mark created as a cover identity, a sophisticated, cultured persona that could move in high society circles that Mark never could. In the Disney Plus series, Stephen became something different and more vulnerable. A mild-mannered gift shop worker with a British accent who has no idea that Mark or Moon Knight even exist. He's the most human of the personalities, the most innocent, and watching him discover the truth about his life is one of the most heartbreaking things in the entire show. Jake Lockley, the most mysterious, a cab driver, street level, connected to the underworld of New York. Jake is the one who does the things that Mark won't, the darker jobs, the morally compromising decisions. In the comics, Jake often operates completely separately from Mark and Stephen. They don't always know what he's been doing. And here's what makes this so psychologically fascinating. These aren't just different outfits or moods. These are genuinely different people sharing one body. They have different memories, different skills, different relationships. Mark might be in a fight, and then suddenly Stephen is there with no idea how to fight, completely overwhelmed. Stephen might be having a conversation and suddenly lose hours of time because Mark took over. And Jake might have done things that neither Mark nor Stephen know about. Think about what that means for a superhero. You can't fully trust your own memories. You can't be sure what you did last night. You wake up and your body has bruises you don't remember getting. That's not a superpower. That's a nightmare. But wait. It gets even deeper. Here's something the Disney Plus series only hinted at, but the comics go much deeper into. Mark's DID didn't start in Egypt, it started when he was a child. Mark had a childhood friend named Randall, and one day, Randall died. In a horrific accident that Mark witnessed directly. The trauma of that moment was the first crack, the first fracture in Mark's sense of self. But there's more. In some comic storylines, Mark was also exposed to deeply unstable behavior at home. The pressure of his father's faith, the expectations, the grief that ran through that household, all of it compounded. Mark's mind did what minds do when they can't process something. It split the experience, created distance, built walls between the different parts of himself. Stephen Grant first appeared not in Egypt, but in Marc's childhood, a fantasy, an escape, a version of himself that lived in a better world with money and respect and none of the pain. So when people say Moon Knight's DID came from the trauma of dying in Egypt, that's only half the story. The foundation was already cracked long before Khonshu ever got involved. And that raises the most uncomfortable question of all. If Marc's mind was already fractured before Khonshu, did the god choose him because he was broken? Or did Khonshu see something in that broken boy from Chicago years before Egypt ever happened? Nobody knows, not even Marc. Okay, this is the part that Moon Knight fans obsess over, and for good reason. Theory 1, Marc Spector is not the original personality. This one is dark, really dark. Some fans believe that none of the three personalities, Marc, Steven, Jake, are the original person. That the original Marc Spector was so completely destroyed by childhood trauma that all three personalities are constructs built on top of nothing. In other words, there is no real Marc. There never was, just a collection of survival mechanisms that learned to function as a person. The Disney Plus series plays with this idea without fully committing to it, and honestly, the ambiguity makes it scarier. Theory 2, Khonshu is not real. This is the theory that the show leans into most heavily. What if Khonshu, the god, the voice in Marc's head, the whole supernatural element, is actually just another personality? Another dissociated piece of Marc's fractured mind that he projected outward into the form of an Egyptian god. What if Moon Knight's powers don't come from a deity, but from Marc himself, filtered through a psychological construct he created to give himself permission to do what needed to be done? It would explain why Khonshu seems to know Marc so well, why he pushes exactly the right buttons, why he always seems to want what some part of Marc already wants. The show never confirms or denies this, and the comics deliberately leave it ambiguous, because if Khonshu is real, Moon Knight is a hero with a divine mission, and if Khonshu isn't real, Moon Knight is a deeply traumatized man whose fractured mind created a god to give meaning to his violence. Both versions are heartbreaking, just in different ways. Theory 3, there are more personalities than we know. In the comics, Marc has shown traces of other personalities beyond the three main ones, brief appearances of people we've never fully met, which raises the question, how many pieces is Marc actually broken into? And are there personalities that even he doesn't know about? Jake Lockley was hidden from Marc and Steven for years. Who else might be hiding? After everything I just told you, the fragmented mind, the manipulative god, the violent past, the darkness, you might be wondering, is Moon Knight actually a hero? And the answer is yes, but not in the way most heroes are. Most heroes have a clear moral code, a line they won't cross, a reason they fight. Moon Knight's moral code shifts depending on which personality is in control. Marc is brutal, pragmatic, willing to do things other heroes won't. Steven is gentle, empathetic, the most traditionally heroic. Jake is the one who operates in true moral gray areas. But through all of it, there is one consistent thread. Moon Knight protects people who travel at night, people who are vulnerable, people the world has forgotten about. Not because Khonshu told him to, but because somewhere in all those fractured pieces, there is still the boy from Chicago whose friend died, who knew what it felt like to be helpless, who knew what it felt like when no one came to help. Moon Knight shows up for those people every time, no matter which version of himself shows up to do it. That's not a god's mission. That's a human choice made over and over again in spite of everything. And that is what makes him a hero. The fragmented mind, the manipulative god, the violent past, the darkness. And that is the story no one told you about Moon Knight, a boy whose mind fractured before he even understood why. A man who died in a desert and came back carrying a god. A hero who fights every night, not just against enemies, but against his own mind. And through all of it, through every personality, every blackout, every whisper from Khonshu, one thing stays constant. He keeps showing up. If this video hit different than you expected, drop a comment. Do you think Khonshu is real? Or is he just another part of Marc's fractured mind? And if you're new here, welcome to Lore Vault. Every week, we go deeper into the stories behind the characters you thought you knew. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.